Hello and welcome to At the Leadership Table with retired Major General Jim Hoyer. Oftentimes people hear the word leader and they think only of political leaders, but leaders come in many forms, and that's worth exploring. I'm Jim Hoyer, born and raised in West Virginia, a husband, a father, a new grandfather, and a retired military leader, serving for over 40 years in public leadership for our state and nation. Now, the most important mission I have going forward is to educate, motivate, and empower our next generation of leaders. At the leadership table with me today is David Thomas, President and CEO of Clear Mountain Bank and this year's chair for the United Way of Monongalia and Preston County's United Way campaign. Dave is a community leader and volunteer, and I've had the pleasure of working with him over the last couple of years now. And Dave, appreciate your leadership in the North Central West Virginia community, and thank you for being at the leadership table with us today.
Well, thank you for the invitation. It's a privilege to be here.
So we're going to ask you the same first question that we ask all of our guests. Please share with us a standout moment when you learned something really important about leadership.
Well, General Hoyer, I think that would be when I came over to the bank. So I came over to the bank officially in January of 2017. Prior to that, I'd been practicing law, and I'd been practicing law for about 20 years prior to that. Banking was something that was new to me in my current role. I'd served on the board of directors and I'd done some legal work for the bank, but that's a far cry from assuming the role of CEO of a bank. So the first thing that I learned is just the importance of surrounding yourself with team members who can pull the load and who know more than you do on certain things. And so that was something, to be honest with you, that was eye-opening for me. Was just, wow, I'm assuming this new role. It's new. Banking's complicated. There's a lot to it. And, quite frankly, the learning curve was very high. So by necessity, I had to lean on my teammates to kind of carry the load. It's a very humbling moment, but it's also very rewarding when you see folks step up and take charge and lead the way. And so that's probably the pivotal moment in my life when I learned a lot of principles of leadership. But the primary one was just the importance of surrounding yourself with teammates who will jump in and help you, kind of carry the load, so to speak. And so I've been very, very blessed. In that regard, I've been very, very blessed to be surrounded by team members who, on certain subjects knew a lot more than I did. And so you've just got to, accept the fact that you can't be an expert in everything, and you do have to rely on people. And again, I was just so blessed to have folks that stepped up to the plate and kept things going. And so that was a really important lesson for me. And because of that, because you are relying on folks so much, you've really got to get to know them on a personal level. And so one of the first things I did when I came over to the bank was I came up with a 90-day plan, because moving over to the bank was not something that was in my long-term planning. It was something that I had to do fairly quickly. So I developed a 90-day plan prior to coming over on January 1st of 2017. And part of that plan was to get to know everybody in the bank. And we sat down and we said, how do we do this, right? Because we're at the time, we're not a huge bank, but we do have 13 branches at the time. We had 3 operational centers, 160 team members. And I was committed to getting to know everybody at some level on a one-to-one level. And so what we did was we put together a road show, and we visited every branch, every department, and I made a promise to myself that I would meet everybody in the bank. And so what we did was we put out a questionnaire, and we asked them 5 questions. Where are you from? What's your favorite movie? Tell me something about yourself that I wouldn't otherwise know, and just questions that would help me to get to know the person. And we did a roadshow, and I was, again, committed to meeting every person in the bank and learning a little bit about them. And I put a signature page on every one of those sheets for every person. So I wanted to make sure I got their autograph, and that was symbolic because I wanted them to know that I cared enough to get to know them. And then, it was kind of a way to hold me accountable, to say, I'm not finishing this roadshow until I get all the signatures from everybody. And I still remember where I was when I got that last signature in the book. But it was a really important lesson for me is that if you're going to ask folks to step up, you've got to take the time to invest in them and to get to know them. And so that was a pivotal moment for me, and we took all the pages that I had gotten signed by all of our team members, and we created a book. And we called the book From Our Root Star Branches, and we still keep it updated to this day. When a new person comes onto the Clear Mountain team, I meet with them about 90 days in, and I ask those same 5 questions that we ask every team member, and I get their signature today, and they go in the book, because each page of that book represents one of our team members, and that really is our story as a community bank, is our people. And so we've kept that up to this day. I think it's critical that you invest the time to get to know your people, it is so important, right? So if you're going to ask folks to show up every day and to do their jobs at an outstanding level, you got to invest the time in getting to know them, and you got to get their feedback. That's really another important lesson that I've learned in my career, is that as a leader, you don't have to come up with all the great ideas. The folks around you have the great ideas. You just have to ask the questions. I still, to this day, we still do branch and department visits at least twice a year, and a lot of that is just going out and asking the question, how are you doing? What do you need? Do you have any ideas? Do you have anything that we can help with? And that's where I get the best ideas, is by asking our team members.
And your examples, number one, strike me that that was quite a change from going from the legal field to running a bank, and I was impressed to hear how you built that plan and that interaction with the employees. But that's a lot of what you do as a community banker, right? So
sure.
Tell us a little bit about the significance of that community bank role, particularly in a state like West Virginia.
Sure. Well, I think community banks are really, they play a very, very critical role in the communities that they serve. And so statistically, I think community banks hold like 15% of the assets in banking, yet we make over 60% of the loans to small businesses, and those are loans that are, $1 million or less. And so it really is important, to get to know, the members of that community that you're serving. And so that's what community banking is all about. So, to kind of carry that same analogy over, just as it's important to get to know your team members, it's really important to get to know your customers on a personal level, and we strive to do that. Because for us, we're in the same communities that our customers live, work, and raise their families, and so it's different, right? They're not account numbers, they're not transactions, they're our friends, our neighbors, our colleagues, and so it really is important as a community bank that we get to know our customers on a personal level. And the community banking model in West Virginia is critical. I think as you look at a lot of the communities around West Virginia, the community bank that's serving that area is really the economic engine, right? So folks wouldn't be able to, start new businesses. Folks wouldn't be able to afford their first homes. And you can go down the line of other needs that banks supply. But there's a unique attribute that community banks provide that some of the larger institutions can't. And that's just the ability to really understand your customers' needs, to know your customers by name. Because again, we're growing up in the same communities. We're going to the same churches. We're going to the same stores, and you get to know folks on a personal level, and you know what's going on in the community. And so it really is a unique and special role that community banks play in the communities that they serve.
And West Virginia is made up primarily of small businesses, our economy. And
Sure.
Then I've heard you quoted a couple of times talking about how community banks serve as that engine for economic development.
Yes.
So does that drive you and your leadership team as you think through how you lead and how you manage the bank every day?
Oh, absolutely. It's one of our core values. One of the core values at Clear Mountain Bank is local community focus. And what that core value means to our team is that we invest heavily in our communities, and we invest our time, our talents, our resources to make our communities better places to live, work, and raise families. And we live it every day.
Mm-hmm. And so you're also a pretty tight-knit organization, and you have a kind of a unique history coming together from community roots. Can you tell us a little bit about how Clear Mountain came together and developed, and some of your roots in the community as well?
Sure. So the roots of our bank go back to the late 1800s, and so back then a lot of community banks were formed by local folks in the community to serve a very vital need, and that's to have a bank in town. And so that's exactly how our predecessor banks got started. So if you go all the way back to our bank's founding, it really is the founding of two banks, the Terra Alta Bank in Terra Alta, which is in Preston County, as well as the Brewston Bank, which was founded in Brewston Mills. And back then the model was more one bank served one community, or you served a particular community. That was well before branch banking. Branch banking didn't come around until the 1980s, and so there was once upon a time there was a model when community banks just served their community, and that's why they were founded, was for that specific purpose. So that's where our roots go back to. Our roots go back to the folks in Terra Alta who formed that bank back in the late 1800s, the folks in Brewston Mills that formed their bank in the early 1900s. And you progress, and of course banking evolves, banking changes, and so, like I said, in the 80s, branch banking becomes a thing, and we certainly expanded our geographic reach going into Mon County. We're now in Mon County, Harrison County. We're in Garrett County, Maryland. We're in Braxton County, and so we've expanded our geographic footprint, and we did change the name to Clear Mountain Bank just to kind of reflect that we were serving a larger geographic area, not a particular town, but I think, as we look at it, even though we've expanded geographically, even though we've taken on additional branches outside of our what I'll call our county of founding, we've continued to keep that community mindset in mind, and so I think every location that we have, we're very plugged into the community. And we try to stay true to our roots, which is serving the communities, even though we're serving more communities today than we were serving when we were founded. We're still driven by the roots that are based in community service.
And how about your personal roots in the West Virginia and surrounding community?
Yeah, so I'm from Preston County originally, and I grew up in Preston County and came to WVU, got an accounting degree, and then decided that I didn't want to go to work for one of the big accounting firms at the time. Thought I'd buy myself a little more time and went to law school and graduated from the WVU School of Law, and then immediately entered into my legal career and spent my entire legal career here in Morgantown. As I mentioned earlier, made the move over to the bank in 2017 and continued to live here in Monongalia County with my wife and our two kids now are WVU students. My wife's a WVU grad, so blue and gold is in our veins.
So you definitely have the roots in the community. So you mentioned not only the significant role that you as a community banker and the bank plays in helping with the economic development side of things, but also you're exceptionally engaged in giving back to the community, being involved in community events and activities and supporting all the citizens. So that led to this year you being the chair of the United Way for Monongalia and Preston County giving campaign. So tell us a little bit about that role and also about the significance of the United Way to our local community.
Sure. So, I had big shoes to fill this year because I know you and you served as co-chair last year with Dr. Marsh, and so we appreciate your service as last year's campaign chair. But this year's campaign is the theme of it is local community impact, because we really wanted to focus on the local impact that the United Way has on Mon and Preston counties. Sometimes I think the United Way gets painted with the brush that it's this big organization and that my donation dollars really aren't going to impact local organizations. And nothing further could be from the truth. The United Way is a very local-driven organization. So while the United Way brand nationally is very strong, and there is a United Way brand that goes from coast to coast, each of the United Way chapters serves its local community. And so for us here in North Central West Virginia, and in particular Mon and Preston counties, that's the United Way of Mon and Preston counties. And so we chose the theme very carefully to remind folks that those dollars stay right here. Mm-hmm. So our goal this year is to raise $1.2 million, and every dollar of that $1.2 million goal, when we achieve it, will be used here in Mon and Preston counties. The other thing that we wanted to emphasize this year is just the far-reaching impact that the United Way has. So while it's very community-specific, it's very broad in terms of the number of organizations that are served. There are currently 24 United Way agencies that are funded. And so, they serve a lot of needs in our community, things like food insecurity, literacy. There are programs that serve youth. There are programs that serve, seniors and everything in between. And so it's a very broad, focused set of needs that are served through the United Way. So while it is very specific in terms of its geographic impact, the number of needs that are served by the United Way and its agencies is very, very broad. And so I look at it as a dollar invested in the United Way is a dollar that gets spread over lots of organizations and lots of needs, because I think a lot of us struggle with, where do I give my donation dollars? Because you want to make sure that you're maximizing the impact of that donation dollar. And it's tough because there are lots of needs out there. And so I think the United Way is in the unique position of saying, hey, we'll take the guesswork out of it. We'll make sure that your dollars are deployed where they're needed most. And the United Way does that because they have citizen review committees. They vet the organizations that are supported. They make sure that those donation dollars are going exactly where they're needed the most. And so that really is what is so powerful about the United Way. Not only is it a local cause-driven organization, but it's multiple causes that are served, and it does so much good in our communities. And so that's kind of it in a nutshell in terms of how we came up with the campaign theme. And I've just been touched along the way with just the stories that I've heard from folks who have been served by United Way agencies. It's a very well-run organization, and I'm just proud to be playing a small role in trying to help them meet this year's goal, which is again $1.2 million.
I know, like Clay and I last year, we were. I'm sure you feel the same way. We were humbled to be asked to be the ones to take on the task, and then as you get into what you just described about the number of agencies and the number of people that are served in the community, you go from being humbled to really focused on making sure you meet that objective, so that all those people can in fact be helped that need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about it every day.
Yeah.
And we're at about 58% of our goal now, and we are working on the 2026 campaign.
Right.
And so there are a number of ways that folks can get involved. One is individual donations, and then businesses can make corporate donations. But the United Way is also very skilled at running workplace campaigns, where folks can kind of sign up through their employer to give a portion of their paycheck to the United Way, so that it comes out a little bit at a time over the course of the year, and the United Way manages all that for folks who want to run workplace campaigns. And it's a great way not only to support the United Way, but it's kind of a team building exercise for local employers to say, hey, let's rally around great causes together. And at Clear Mountain, we've run a workplace campaign for a number of years, and we have a lot of fun with it. So it does make a big impact. And then the United Way also has events throughout the year, and so that's the fourth way that the United Way raises money. But yeah, I mean it is there's a lot that goes into the campaign, and the United Way team works really, really hard. And there's a board that's very, very dedicated to the United Way and supporting it. So it's a great team effort. So I've enjoyed being a part of it, and like I said, every day I think about meeting that goal. So hopefully we'll get there.
I remember that well. Yes,
Yeah.
and so if somebody wants to donate or to volunteer, they can check first and see if their organization that they work for has a campaign or has a volunteer program. But for those that don't, what's the best way for somebody to reach out to the United Way to find out about giving or volunteering?
Sure. So best way is probably to go to the website, General Hoyer. So it's www.unitedwaympc, standing for Monongalia and Preston County. So again, www.unitedwaympc.org.
Okay. So folks can go on there. They can look at opportunities both to donate but also to volunteer as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of volunteer opportunities as well. So
you're a business leader and community banker. You're also helping lead volunteer activities in the community, and with two children. Give me what your vision is for what you'd like to see for the future of North Central West Virginia, but West Virginia as a whole going forward, both from that all those different perspectives, from the banking perspective, the parent perspective, and the community volunteer perspective.
Yeah, I think West Virginia's best days are ahead. I think that most West Virginians feel like we're underdogs, and I kind of like being an underdog. And I think that brings with it just a can-do attitude. And as I look around and I look at some of the future leaders in our area, I think the future is very, very bright. And so I think for me, the vision would be to continue to, from the banking perspective, my hope is that we just continue to grow. We think there is a place for community banks in the long term. And so from the banking perspective, I'm blessed to be surrounded by a group that I think can carry things on for, we've been around for over 130 years. I'm hopeful they can carry it on for another century and beyond, and I believe that they can do that. And so that's the vision there from the banking perspective, is just to keep doing what we're doing, but do more of it. I think it's community banks play a unique role, and I think that need is always going to be there. Now, of course, we've got to make sure that we stay current with the times, right? So we just launched a new mobile app, a new online platform. We're working on account openings that are more efficient, more digital oriented, and so you got to keep growing with the times. You can't stand on your laurels and just do it the way you've done it for the last 130 years. You got to think ahead, and we've got a very forward-looking group that have that vision, and so I'm really excited about the future of our bank, and hope that we can continue to grow and expand over the next several decades. From the community perspective, I'm seeing a renewed interest in local, right, and folks really appreciating what we have here in our backyards, right? And so I'm really encouraged by that. I think from a community service standpoint, I think there are lots of organizations that are serving a lot of great needs, and I think that is going to continue to be something that evolves. But it seems to me like now more than ever, folks are starting to appreciate that. And so I'm really encouraged by the community involvement that I'm seeing, and think that we need to double down, obviously. I think the thing that's unique about West Virginia is, as I mentioned earlier, we always kind of feel like, we're underdogs, and and that gives us a little bit more swagger, a little more grit, a little more determination. Because I don't think that anybody from the outside is going to come in and save us, so to speak. So I think we're just going to have to, buckle down, work hard, and I'm confident that our folks can do that. And I hope we can keep young people here to do that. And so, I'm encouraged by some of the things I'm seeing at the university level, in terms of just the opportunities that we're providing for our students here in West Virginia. There are lots of opportunities for folks who want to stay in West Virginia to continue to pursue educational opportunities, whether it be through trade schools or through, college and university experiences, and so I think that's really important, and I think things are moving in the right direction. So I'm optimistic on that. I'm optimistic for a brighter West Virginia for years to come. I really am.
I share that sentiment as well, and I thank you, Dave, for your role as a community banker and business leader, your role as a community leader and volunteer, and thank you for taking the time for joining us at the leadership table.
Well, it's been a privilege. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. This has been At the Leadership Table with retired Major General Jim Hoyer. Did you know you can now find me on social media at RMG Hoyer? That's HOYER, or email me at rmgjameshoyer@gmail.com.